fundamentals of what you need even before you start building your website, because the building of the website is the easiest part. Hi, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the fundamentals of building a website. And this is regardless of whether you want to DIY it yourself, if you're a small business, or if you want to hire someone to do it. I know that not everyone wants to build their own website, but this will still be helpful for you if you want to contract out the building of your website. Right, so I'm going to talk about just the major things. The first one being what for, right? Why do we even, as small businesses, have websites these days? And the answer is you need that visibility. It gives you visibility and it gives you credibility. Most major players in any industry have websites. They spend upwards to, I don't know, $200,000-$300,000 per year, and that's including developers who they use or they may contract out, as well as just maintenance and all those type of costs. And so everybody does it. I mean, if you're a small business that wants to establish yourself, give yourself a little bit more credibility, I'm not saying you absolutely have to build a website, but it is extremely important for visibility and marketing. So we've got into the why you want to have a website, and let's talk about the fundamentals of what you need even before you start building your website, because the building of the website is the easiest part. So when we talk about the fundamentals of building a website, most of it refers to copy and call to actions, right? Copy is when people come onto your website, they want to know what it is you're selling, and you should be able to get a person to know what you are selling above the fold. And what that really means is when you open up a laptop, you open up your cell phone, you type in www. whatever your business is, and they come to your website, they need to know exactly what it is that they're purchasing. A lot of people will say, oh, well, I'm just selling books. No, you're not selling books, you're selling an experience. What type of books are you selling? So in that instance, copy is one of the most important parts of your website. And before you come for me and you say, well, people don't read. The thing is, people don't read, they do kind of skim, but you know who does read every single word? The computers. The Google who will do your sitemap, which is something we'll get into, like the technical SEO in a different video. But when your website is indexed through Google so that when people search for you, they can find you, they read every single word, and those words become keywords, which in turn become the things that people use to search for the things that you sell, right? If you are a landscaping business, or you do ponds, or you have any type of business, those keywords that you put inside your website are now searchable, and that makes them easier to find you, which is what you want, right? People can find you, they can use your services, they become either repeating customers, or they can refer you to to a potential customer. And so that's just one of the major things, right? The other thing is call to action, right? What do you want them to do? What kind of action do you want them to take from your website? If you just have a basic website that you just want to be a place of information, which I don't suggest, but again, that's more of an SEO marketing type conversation that we'll have later. But what do you want them to do? Do they buy directly from your website? In this instance, e-commerce, or services. Do they get a consultation first? Do they get on your newsletter so that they can be informed of new products? What do you want them to do? So those are the two first things you need to think about when you're going to design a website, right? Because they inform a lot of the other choices that you make. The third thing you want to think about is branding, right? Branding is just the story that you tell to potential customers. Right? Then the branding kind of encompasses, it does more than just encompass, but it encompasses the story that you're trying to tell your customers to get them to the next step. And everybody has, I'm not going specifically into what that next step is, because everybody's next step will be different depending on the type of business that you have. So once you've got those three things, the branding, and branding also includes what's your colors, what's your font, images, whether you take images, like for instance, if you take images for inventory, you have those. If you have photos of jobs that you've completed, that all goes into the branding aspect. And even just the layout and design of your website, you want it to be aligned with your brand. But that comes later in the process, right? So if, say you were to contract out to someone the building of your website, then these are things that you as a business owner, or if you're part of a department who's doing the marketing, this is something that you want to give to the designer. You shouldn't have a website developer or designer should not be responsible for your copy. That's just, if you want to contract out a marketer, a copywriter, those are different things, but they should not be responsible for your copy. Just keep that in mind. And then we'll move on to the fourth thing, which is your domain, right? I'm making a big assumption here that most people who have a business have a name for their business. I mean, that just kind of goes hand in hand, right? And that name transfers to a domain, right? You should definitely, if you don't already have a domain, get one. Even if you're not using it for a website right now, get a domain and then get an email address that just says your name at yourdomain.com, right? That gives you legitimacy. And this is something that's been talked about over and over again. I'm not creating anything new here. So that's one of the things that I would suggest, is to get a domain name. Now, there are tons of places that you can go to get a domain name. Namecheap, Google, GoDaddy. Those are probably the top three. But when I get to number 5, which is hosting, some hosting companies even include the ability to get a domain name. Now, I know that GoDaddy does that, Bluehost does it, SiteGround or some of your other managed service providers may do it as well. And that brings up another part, number 5, which is hosting. And hosting is basically where your website lives. Now, if you're contracting out to someone the building of your website, then you won't necessarily have to do this. It can be an add-on for certain businesses. For certain contractors, they will get your hosting together, get your email domain set up, get your website built. I mean, it's not free or cheap. Which, if you need to go the free or cheap way, you need to figure out hosting yourself, right? And hosting is not hard. There are some really great hosting companies that take care of a lot of things for you. I mean, we're talking one button push. Off the top of my head, the two that I think about the most that make it really easy to get you set up, if you're not doing like a Shopify or a website builder like Squarespace and all of those, if you're really going to set up like a WordPress website, then you would need hosting. And for that, I would recommend Bluehost and SiteGround. I've used both of them. SiteGround's website migration or website one-click website is really fast, really simple, really easy to get started. I mean, they have really handled the bulk of the hard work that you don't have to. So the sixth thing would be like the design aspect. Like we finally reached the design aspect, right? You've got your copy, you've got your call to actions, you've got your branding, you got your domain name, your host. Now you need to design your website, right? And I've talked about this in different forms because some people won't actually need to go through hosting. Everybody need to get a domain, but some people won't need to go through hosting because if you use Webflow, Wix, Shopify, Sistine, Kajabi, those type of platforms, then you won't need hosting. But if you're building WordPress, or if you're doing a just React or a HTML page, like you're not going to use if you are going to use WordPress and not self-hosted, then you'll need hosting. And then when it comes to, so here's the thing. When it comes to choosing a platform to host your website, right, or to build your website on, you kind of need to think about the end game. I say this because a lot of people, when they first start out, they start with Wix or they start with Squarespace. And listen, Squarespace makes beautiful websites. Like, it's really plug and play. However, Squarespace doesn't grow with you when you're here, right? And that's where we're all going in small businesses, right? We're going here. You need a platform that's going to grow with you. And in that instance, I recommend WordPress, right? There isn't a single thing you can't do on WordPress. If you have a membership or a learning management system, an LMS, or like if people are going to spend a lot of time on your website, then you need to be thinking about the long term, right? I feel like WordPress can grow with you. Now, the caveat to WordPress is that it can become very bloated over time, which means as you grow, it requires a lot more maintenance. But we're making the assumption here that as you grow, you won't be doing this. You'll have a team doing this. But these are things that you need to know going into the beginning so that when you pass this off, it's easy. There are automations that you can do with your website. There is maintenance that you can do that'll keep you kind of self-sufficient for a while. There are so many add-ons and plugins and optimizations, and at 25, I like to throw out this statistic when I'm talking about WordPress, but 25% of the world uses WordPress, right? Not just of the world. And so that is something to think about. It's definitely a platform that will help you grow. Not sponsored, by the way, just saying. Well, honestly, WordPress.org is free. So I mean, do I have to sell you on it? Step 8, budget. Budgets. Okay, we're gonna talk about budget. So a website can cost you anywhere from free to $10,000. And that just depends. At the $10,000 range, we've got a e-commerce store that does a multitude of things, that has a multitude of products, or you have a really old site that needs to be updated and you need tons and tons of work, right? Or you want a very powerful, very heavily SEO'd website from the very beginning. Really, it's pages, right? And then like free is do it yourself. Like literally. You do your copy. You do your copy. You do your call to actions. You get on AWS. I mean, there are ways that you can do it for free, or very, very like dollars per month. But the trade-off for that is that you don't get, yeah, I mean, you have to do everything yourself, like everything. And even there's even caveats to that, but we won't get into it because I could make a whole video on just how to build your website for completely free. Or get your website built for completely free. But most of the time what it really comes down to is your domain name and hosting. Those two things I don't see being free, and if they are free, you need to really think about what it is you're getting, because I did build a free website on a free hosting, and it was not good. There's a privacy security concern there that I would not suggest. If you own a small business, I would not suggest you go with the absolute free route. So in the middle is just what most businesses need. In between your 10K and your 0, the middle is somewhere around where most businesses need. So think about that when you're going to build your website, right? If you are, again, like Squarespace and I think Webflow are both like $29 a month, somewhere in there, the $29 to $30 a month, right? So if you just really need to just put your stuff out there, that's probably your best way to go. But also, like, for about $500-ish, you could, with that budget, you could probably get quite a bit done. You and maybe a copywriter, you know, you handle the domain name, the hosting, and use maybe like SiteGround and WordPress and get you going. Buy a theme or a template kit online using plugins, and you got your copy and you're pretty much ready to go. A lot of people say that WordPress has a really high learning curve, but I would disagree. I think if you get WordPress set up and you get Elementor is really drag and drop. It's very similar to like Squarespace or Wix, but now what you have that's different is you have templates set up, and you just plug and play your copy, your images, your branding, your fonts. Boom, you're done. Does it seem like a lot? Because when I say it, it seems like a lot, but it's really not a lot. And I have a video showing like how I design websites using WordPress and Elementor. It's sped up with just music, so if you want to walk through like the different steps of like what it takes, you can just skim through that. You can skim through that video and kind of see what works. And really, it's really easy, really simple. Also, let me know, drop a comment if you want me to go more in depth about working with Elementor, because the plugin, like if you, the base plugin for Elementor is free. It's free as in 0. And you can do a ton with free Elementor. There's tons of places where there's tons of communities where you can get your questions asked. There are tons of templates that are like $20, $25, $30 that can help you get set up in a snap. So, and then all you do is plug in your copy, get your call to actions, and you're done. I hope that this has been helpful for you. I think I've covered, now what I didn't cover is the SEO part of that, but that's gonna be in a separate video. So we will discuss that, look forward to that. And let me know down in the comments if you have any questions, how you built your website, and if you would do it again, or if you would use a different platform. All right, bye guys.